Yeah, you're good to go whenever
Cool.
you feel ready.
After the first line of this poem, you'll never believe what happens next. 3 lines in and I was completely hooked, and that thing you assumed to be true, well, if you only do one thing today, make sure it's listen to the end of this poem. Only the most awesome people do this. This is one poem you shouldn't miss. After all, does this lead in question lead anywhere significant? Find out after the line break. You need to hear what this poem does next. This poem, written by a 5-year-old kid who is way wiser than most adults, because there's 26 things only people who hear this poem will understand. And if you thought it was clickbait, think again. I mean, what kind of poetry person are you? Listen to this poem to find out, or listen to this celebrity reading the poem, as the shocking truth hits home for one reason, and one reason only. Click me. Learn to write something like this in just 12 seconds. Meet the words behind some of the most successful poems of all time. The results are completely unexpected, as 9 weird things about poetry are explained by this one guy who makes a powerful point so eloquently it will somehow change the world, and you will cry or laugh or shrug before clicking on the next poem, which is all about Miley Cyrus. Let's talk about how this poem speaks to you and the way that little words can have huge impact. This is why most people don't get poetry. And the next time someone says to you pretty much anything about poetry, just link them to this poem, like it applies to every conversation, answers any question you ever had about anything. What kind of 90s feminist sandwich-filling Disney character are you? Listen to this poem to find out. I dare you to listen to this poem and not think, what? And usually you'd be right, but prepare to have your mind blown, because this poem has an important message that everyone should hear, and it will inspire you. It will inspire you. It will inspire you, or not. Just click it. My name is Dan Simpson, and my poem is called Clickbait. So the poem is inspired by all of those classic clickbait headlines you see on sort of Upworthy and BuzzFeed and Mashable, and I guess how our attention spans have really shrunk, so it's quite hard to be a poet in that kind of world. So I tried to write a poem that would appeal to our short attention span society, but with silliness and jokes. Yeah, I did English at university, and I quite liked page poetry, but analysing it, I didn't really write a huge amount myself. But I did a lot of drama stuff. I joined the Drama Society, and that's where I first did sort of comedy things for the first time. I was always very scared as a teenager, very underconfident, had absolutely no desire to get into performing or being sort of on stage. But you know, you go to university, you say yes to everything, and I went to a comedy event and I made a few people laugh, and that was just the best feeling. So from that I kind of wrote comedy plays, I did sketches and things like that, and then after university I found it's actually really hard to get the people together, to have the resources, to find the spaces, to find an audience, and I found actually spoken word to be a really easy and accessible way of writing to make people laugh. Write a funny poem, go to an open mic, say it out loud, and you know, you've entertained people. So yeah, I did that for a while, got a couple of paid gigs and thought, oh, this is an actual thing. And yeah, from there it just kind of took off, really. I don't really have a writing technique, I don't think. It depends on the situation, I guess. If it's sort of me, something will spark off in my head, and it will be just from looking at the world, reading things, just being generally inspired. And then I'll struggle to find a framework. I think once I've got the frame of the poem, I find it quite straightforward. It's kind of almost like painting by numbers or writing by numbers. You're kind of filling in the sections you kind of know you need. But when it's more of a commission, and it's more you kind of have to force it a little bit more, or you have to hit a deadline in a way where you don't for your own stuff, it's kind of a little bit brute force method. It is just plugging in the words, removing them, changing them around until it feels like it makes sense. So I guess I maybe have 2 very different ways of writing. If you're trying to get into spoken word, I would say go out and be prepared to fail, and be aware that you will fail even if people don't tell you you failed. I think it's a particularly hard art form to be very self-aware in. You do a poem, and particularly if it's something from a terrible thing that happened to you or a political viewpoint you have, people will come and give you credit for that, as they should. But I feel then it's harder to have sort of criticism on that to actually get better as an artist. In stand-up, you can hear if people have laughed or not. It's a very quick and easy method to know, are you doing well as a stand-up comedian? In theatre making, you have scratch sessions, you have directors, you have dramaturgs, you have producers. They will give you feedback about what's working and what's not. In poetry, I don't think we have that critical practice as much. So I would say for someone first starting spoken word who wants to get better at it, maybe start getting paid gigs, featuring, headlining. I would say have a really good self-awareness for yourself, and have some really good, really critical friends, because that's how you get better. My favourite breakfast. I am giving the hipster answer, looking like this. It has to be smashed avocado on toast. You cannot beat it. And I don't care if that's very hipster. It's just delicious. With feta. and sprinkled chili flakes. And a little bit of truffle oil. On like a really delicious multi-grain seeded bread. Toasted lightly. With scrambled egg. I've not thought about this very much at all.